And we begin this morning with Attorney General William Barr telling lawmakers that he expects to deliver a redacted version of the Mueller report by mid-April. A few weeks later than the deadline set by House Democrats, the special counsel investigation, of course, found that the Trump campaign did not collude with Russia to influence the 2016 election, but deferred to Barr and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein on the question of obstruction. They concluded the evidence did not support that either. Today, Sunday Morning Futures marks its 5th year anniversary on the air. We promise to continue following the facts wherever they lead and keeping you, our much appreciated viewer, as well informed as possible. For more than a year and a half, this program has done just that with the Mueller investigation by asking the tough questions about the circumstances that actually led to it. We've continually brought back the Republican lawmakers who learned of critical information early on that cast doubt on the collusion narrative. We've challenged Democrats to respond to that evidence. And we've talked to the person at the center of the investigation himself, President Trump. Let's take a look back now as the investigation unfolded to get us to where we are today. We have been hearing bits and pieces of this so-called Russia probe, so-called collusion between Trump and the Russians with absolutely zero evidence. Is that the insurance policy? Was Peter Strzok basically saying to his mistress, look, we're just going to keep investigating Donald Trump should he win?
Boy, it surely reads that way, but the only way we're going to know that is to interview Lisa Page and Peter Strzok.
What bothers people out there is you have to be able to trust your FBI, your CIA, your IRS, because there is a thing called the rule of law. And what we've learned from some of these text messages is that there is a whole lot of bias and corruption going on at the top. Tell us what you've learned.
Yeah, and it's important to emphasize there are tens of thousands of great men and women who every day keep us safe, prevent terrorist attacks, solve crimes at the FBI, but they are being besmirched by several people in the leadership of the FBI that have a shocking contrast in the way they took the approach they took to the Clinton investigation and the one they've taken to the Trump investigation.
You joined us 4 weeks ago on this program. At that time, you said you wanted to get the electronic communication from the Department of Justice and the FBI. You wanted that electronic communications to understand exactly how the Trump investigation into collusion even began. You've now since seen the electronic communication, yes?
That's correct. So it took us a long time to actually get this, what's called the electronic communication. As we know it now for your viewers, what that is it's the original intelligence, the original reasons that the counterintelligence investigation was started. Now, this is really important to us because a counterintelligence investigation uses the tools of our intelligence services that are not supposed to be used on American citizens. So we've long wanted to know, well, what intelligence did you have that actually led to this investigation? So what we found now, after the investigators had reviewed it, is that, in fact, there was no intelligence.
If you ask the FBI today how much of the dossier is verified, almost none, and the verification comes from open media sources. This dossier was prepared by a foreign agent paid by the Democratic Party and used to get a FISA warrant, and the FBI, former FBI director, did not know that it was a political document paid by a political party. To me, that is stunning. Right. Not only was the Clinton email investigation a joke, the dossier was used inappropriately.
So how do you call yourself someone who, agrees with and follows the rule of law if, in fact, you used a piece of garbage as, the reason to wiretap and listen in on an American citizen?
Any comments on Peter Strzok and these testimonies that we're seeing, Rod Rosenstein, Christopher Wray? Why don't you just direct your subordinates to get those documents over to Congress? Are you going to do it?
So I have this country running like a top. Mike Pompeo is doing great. We really have a great group of people. The one thing I want to stay uninvolved in, at least for now, I may get involved. Okay. But I've been told by so many people, don't get involved. Other people got involved, and it's not good. And they'll get the documents, and they're getting them, and they're great people. I didn't like the scene the other day where everybody's screaming at each other. I don't like that because it's bad for the country. If Russia is in fact looking to sow discord or chaos, they've got to be saying, this is the greatest thing we've ever done. Okay? Now, There's no collusion with me. There's no Russia with me. There's no nothing. Honestly, it's a disgrace.
I see all of the evidence. I got it. And I understand, I think, what took place in 2016. And yet, it hasn't resonated with the broad public as much. It's incredible that they've thrown out their ideals, their values, of all of the things we hold dear, our freedoms, wiretapping someone for no reason because it's Donald Trump.
Yeah, number one, I'm really discouraged as a former Justice Department official who gave 17 years of his life to the Justice Department, to see a Justice Department under Sessions that will do nothing about this.
They had informants trying to lure Trump campaign officials to get them into meetings. They had a media leak strategy, apparently, all the while knowing that there was no collusion. I mean, this is just extraordinary, Congressman.
More than 70 witnesses appeared before the House Intelligence Committee. All of them were asked the same question. What evidence do you have of Russian collusion with Donald Trump or the Trump campaign? What evidence do you have of conspiracy? What evidence do you have of coordination? And they batted 1,000 in their response. These are folks like Susan Rice and Samantha Power, senior DOJ and department officials and intelligence and law enforcement officials, and they all said, we don't have any.
We've covered this a lot for the last year and a half, and we know that there was real FISA abuse, where the FBI did not tell the FISA judge who paid for the dossier that it was a political document, etc. Are you going to pursue that? Are you going to seek the truth there?
Maria, that's not accurate, and I've looked at every single one of the FISA affidavits that the Justice Department in any way misled the judge. I understand that that's a Republican talking point, but that's simply not accurate.
I didn't say misled. They did not tell the judge that the Democrats paid for the dossier. That's a fact.
How are you going to get anything done with all of this?
This should never happen to another president. What happened to me, they came up with an excuse for losing an election. This should never happen to another president, because most presidents wouldn't be able to take it. I know the politicians, I know the president, I know what we're dealing with. Most people wouldn't be able to take it. Let me tell you something, Maria. What happened to me should never happen to another president of the United States.
Evening, everyone, and welcome to The Next Revolution. I'm Steve Hilton, and this is the home of positive populism, pro-worker, pro-family, pro-community. Well, what an incredible week it's been since our show last Sunday night with the Mueller report, the exoneration of the president, no collusion, no conspiracy, no obstruction, and no recognition from the Democrats and their allies in the deep state media that any of that actually happened. For them, it was barely a speed bump on the road to what they really want, which is to overturn the 2016 election and get rid of a president they cannot stand. Well, someone who is working extremely hard in the opposite direction to keep Donald Trump in the White House is senior advisor to the Trump 2020 campaign, Lara Trump, and she joins us exclusively tonight. Lara, so great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Well, what do you make of the fact that, this incredible result, which the whole country should be able to come behind and celebrate, just barely causes any interruption to the campaign on the other side to basically undermine this president?
Well, Steve, it's great to be with you. I've never been on your show before, so thanks for having me. Obviously, as a family, as a campaign, we were very, very happy to really get this over with, quite frankly. For years now, we have been saying that there was no collusion with Russia. We are now seeing finally come to light what we have all known, that our campaign was run very well, that this was a duly elected, fairly elected president. And you would think, to your point, that people would be so happy all across this country, Steve, that we finally can say Donald Trump is the legitimate president. There's no question. Sadly, you did see some television show hosts crying, people upset. I mean, would they really have wanted a president working with Russia? I don't know. But obviously, we're very thrilled to have it behind us. And I really think it's time for the country to move on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree with that. Doesn't seem to be much chance of it. But looking ahead in what role do you think all this will play in the election next year?
Well, I hope it actually doesn't play a role, because what we want to focus on from the campaign perspective is all the great stuff that this president has done for this country. Stephen, 2.5 years, this president has done more than his predecessors, in many cases in 2 terms in office. You look at the booming economy in this country. You look at the lowest unemployment in some cases in the history of this country. You look at the fact that we have manufacturing jobs pouring back into this country by the hundreds of thousands, something that this president's predecessor said you would have to have a magic wand to see happen. You look at GDP, you look at wages up. I mean, that's what we're running on in 2020. And I always say the president is doing all the hard work for us at the campaign right now, because he's doing such a great job leading this country. He's doing such a great job as our president. So quite frankly, I don't know why we'd want to focus on any of this nonsense. That's all it is. It's all it's been from the beginning. Or people that were upset that Hillary Clinton didn't win still can't get over the results of the 2016 election, trying to implement, you know, some sort of change, trying to get rid of this president. And it's disgusting that it had to happen. But as Donald Trump, as our president said, he hopes to see this happen to no one else. This is crazy, and this is not the way that things should function in the United States of America.
I totally agree with you, Lara. And, you know, it picks up on something I say week after week on the show, which is that, you know, what they want to focus on scandal, while the president and his team and all of you just want to focus on the substance, things that actually matter to real people in their real lives. Yeah. They're not interested in any of that. I want to pick up on one of those areas that's going to be crucial, and it was a big story again this week, which is healthcare. We heard the news that the administration is going to get behind the lawsuit to try and have Obamacare overturned. President promising that the Republicans will be the party of great health care. How do you see that moving forward? When do you think we might see a plan emerge? And again, how's that going to really play a part in the 2020 campaign?
Well, listen, we know that Obamacare is a complete and total disaster. And this president has been saying it since the campaign in 2016 that he wanted to fix health care because it's not working for the people of this country, Steve. I mean, that's the bottom line. I think it's something he's working on every day. I'm sure he's already working on it right now. And he wants to come up with a plan that is so great for people. And I know he's not going to come up with a half-hearted plan. It's going to be something that's so good. He wants to own it. And listen, I think people in this country care about it. You look at the other side of the coin. You look at the Democrats that have now gotten into the race. Medicare for all. How are we paying for that as a country? You look at countries like Canada who have a system similar to that. These people are flocking to America to get surgeries done, to get medical procedures done, because it really is not the way you want to see health care done, what the Democrats are proposing. So I think we need to give people a very clear alternative to that, and I know the president is working hard on it. It's probably his next big focus.
Well, I think you're exactly right. That choice will be such a big part of it. When looking at the Democratic field, I just want to sort of talk about some of those characters that we're seeing emerged. One of the things that obviously was a huge factor with then candidate Donald Trump in 2016 that really gave some of us a clue that, you know, there's something special was happening here was, of course, the crowds he attracted. And if you look at the other side, that's not really happening, with one exception, with Beto O'Rourke. Whatever else you may say about him, and I've been very tough with him on this show, he does seem to be getting crowds going. What do you make of that?
Not a whole lot. I mean, he's a great skateboarder, and we know that. He's, I'm sure, very fun and cool to go see. But listen, you really cannot compete with the crowds that this president draws. I mean, we're getting RSVPs by the hundreds of thousands of people to these rallies. I mean, it's crazy. People start lining up 24 hours in advance for them. So we don't worry about Beto or anybody else. He seems to me to be a little bit of a flash-in-the-pan candidate. People are excited about him now. But what is he offering, by the way? I really don't know what he's running on, or quite frankly, other than socialism, what are a lot of these Democrat candidates running on? They're going to reverse all the great things we've seen happen in this country under this president. So we don't worry about that. I don't make a whole lot out of that. I think those crowds will start to dribble out after not too long.
Well, I totally agree with you about him. Honestly, I think for my money, he's actually one of the worst. He's a totally vacuous fraud. I'm not rude about all of the candidates. I don't make a habit of it. But he in particular, honestly, there's something about him Okay, I'm going to leave it there before I get into trouble. Lara Trump, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you'll come back as the campaign goes on. Great to see you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.